Just for my understanding, can I just, with a show of hands, know how many of you people who belong here belong to Toastmasters of Infosys? Okay. And the rest of you, I assume, apart from, of course, the ones I know, assume that you people are employees of Infosys, right? Okay. Can I ask you one more question? The rest of you, those who did not raise your hands, what brings you here?
I think my speeches are pretty decent, but definitely always like to know. And it was a challenge for me to think about adding new speech. So I thought Toastmaster invite that came across said adding new speeches. So it was a topic of interest and maybe of
Okay, wonderful. Anybody else? One more I'll take, then I'll get started.
The mail says that there is a speaker, so obviously we don't need to speak. So that is like one thing. The second thing is the topic is interesting. Normally we do intend to speak we want to speak cheerful, but it happens we get into the serious. I mean, because we deal with technical things or some things, we get into serious conversation. So I think this topic is interesting, how to communicate with the successor or something. So that's why it's brings.
Thank you. Can I get your name, sir?
Gurnath.
Gurnath.
Madhuri.
Madhuri. Okay, so can we have a good round of applause for both of them? Okay. So now I'll get started. The first session which I'm going to handle today is going to be Mentor the Mentors. Now, we will, as I go forward in this next 25-30 minutes, we will know what is mentoring, what are the elements of mentoring, and then why mentoring is important for each one of us, and how, with all the mentor support around us or within us, how can we become different, better individuals. That's the basic agenda for the next 25-30 minutes. So, I will be taking you through with the help of the presentation and also with my ability to engage with you all as to how we can identify and understand the significance of mentoring. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. It was a Tuesday afternoon, same around 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I was sitting in a garage in Madhapur getting my car fixed. And on the other side, I heard one mechanic who was screaming at the top of his voice to a well-suited and booted gentleman, saying that, why is that surgeons like you get paid in thousands and lakhs, while we, poor mechanics, get paid only in hundreds and at the most, few thousands. I actually sitting there overheard this entire conversation and it got me curious. So I actually leaned towards that to know what is happening there. If you would have been there with me in that particular garage, you would have seen just a while ago one nice suited and booted gentleman driving his Mercedes into that garage. But the only difference being there was smoke coming out of the entire engine and the bonnet. So this guy came, parked his car and then summoned this mechanic. The mechanic comes and then he says, now fix it up. Because they have a relationship, the mechanic did not speak a word. He got underneath the car, like how our Shah Rukh Khan gets underneath trains in Ravan. And then after some time, with all the grease and oil around him, he comes out and then he calls this nicely suited and booted gentleman, saying that, sir, your car is ready. Now this was the story before that dialogue. Now the gentleman checks out his car and after which he says, okay, fine, and then he takes out his money and then pays him a few hundreds. And that was when that mechanic told his dialogue. Why is that surgeons like you paid or get paid in lakhs and millions, while we poor mechanics get paid in hundreds and at the most few thousands? Now, when I was leaning to listen to this part of this dialogue and I was eagerly waiting for the answer which that suited gentleman is going to give, in fact, it was a very, I can say, thought-provoking answer. Because the answer what he gave was, he said, well, the only difference between a surgeon and a mechanic is, I operate on the heart of a human body similar to what you operate on the heart of a machine, which is the engine. But the difference is, I operate on the heart when the entire heart is functioning. But my dear friends, you have the leverage and the luxury to switch off the engine and work on it. Next time you want to get paid in $1 million or $1 lakh, try operating on the engine when it is functioning. Do you know the difference now? So the surgeon operates on a human body without having the luxury to switch it off, while the mechanic has the luxury to switch it off. Now why am I telling you all this? I am supposed to talk on mentoring, but why am I talking about mechanic? And I am sure the poster which was circulated to your department never said, understand how to be a mechanic. Right? But this was the car, this was not the car, but what is important is the story, the surgeon and the mechanic. As we have heard this particular story, we have a lot of questions. We talk about leading. In fact, in Toastmasters, one very famous word, apart from communication and public speaking, is leadership. But when we are talking about mentoring, mentoring is leadership in action. You don't have the luxury or the leverage to switch it off. And then you say that, okay, give me a neat and clean piece of clay. I'm going to mold it the way I want. Let it be there on the table and take its time to dry. And then I'm going to paint it, decorate it as a vase, and then show it to all of you that this is my piece of art. Can each one of us sitting here realize or understand that can anybody be mentored that way? Anybody comes to you like raw molten clay that you can give them the shape? No. They have their own baggages. They have their own plus and minuses. I don't even want to call it minus. They have their own experiences. And you as a mentor have to work on them with all that they have. That's what I call it as leadership in action. So it's on the move, it's dynamic. There is nothing which is static about it. So that makes mentoring even more challenging. Okay? Now, we are talking about mentoring. Now I'll ask you a question. How many of you know the exact reason why this entire process of two people coming together is called mentoring? Or why mentor? They might have given some other name, right? So do you know, anybody here, do you know the origin of the word mentor?
It's with some Greek mythology.
It's with my Greek mythology, okay? Further? You're there.
See it in wiki, but I'm not able to get it.
Okay, so your friend here has nailed it. He said it's from the Greek mythology. So I'll take it from here and then tell you the story. Why word mentor? The Greek story goes back. It goes back to the days of Homer. I don't know whether you have heard of this, but there is a book called Odyssey, which was written by Homer. And at this point in time, there were two characters which we all have to remember. The first character is Ulysses. Ulysses was the king of that particular kingdom. And at that point in time in history, there was a time where the War of Trojan was declared. War of Trojan, I think somebody has heard of it. When War of Trojan was declared, at that point in time, Ulysses decides to go and fight that war. And those days, you know, that wars were fought for years together, not days and not weeks and not months, it was for years. And history has it that this war, which was covered here, the War of Trojan, was fought for 12 long years. Now, Ulysses had a challenge on hand. The challenge was, he had a teenage boy. His name was Telemachus. Now, he did not want this teenage boy to get exposed to the brutality of the war. So he says that I am not going to take you to the war, but at the same time, he never knew what is he going to do, because he got to keep him engaged in a meaningful way till he comes back, or for that matter, if he does not come back, what will happen to him? So that is when Ulysses takes his son Telemachus to his friend and tells his friend that, look, I am going to this war. I don't know whether I will be coming back alive or dead. I can't predict. But I want you to take care of my boy Telemachus. Give him all the knowledge, all the wisdom, so that he can become a wonderful emperor for this kingdom and provide all the benefits and services to my subjects. His friend readily agrees, and then the rest is history, which is covered in this book. Now again, Telemachus, Ulysses, why mentorship? The friend with whom Telemachus spends his rest of his life, his name was Mentor. And that gives us the definition of mentor, which is a mentor is one who selflessly passes on the wisdom from one generation to another. Now, mentor did not take anything in return, his friend. He only took responsibility of that boy and then gave him all the wisdom. Now, two words here which we have to follow is wisdom and generation. Generation does not mean that the next generation in terms of children coming up or the next generation. Generation means a sense of time and space. In our Toastmaster circuit or in our team circuit or in our company circuit, I may be a manager or I may be an assistant manager, and there may be a team lead or there may be a team member, and I am going to mentor him. That doesn't mean that I belong to one generation and he belongs to another generation. It's just that I belong to a particular set of time and space, and he belongs to a particular set of time and space, and we exchange information, knowledge and wisdom. Now, let me ask you another question. We have been using knowledge and wisdom interchangeably, and I have used the word wisdom and it is in white. How many of us know the difference between knowledge and wisdom? Or first of all, is there any difference between knowledge and wisdom? Who said yes? Madhuri. Yeah. What is the difference between knowledge and wisdom?
Knowledge is probably knowing facts, and knowledge is what makes you wise enough to make decisions. So I would say wisdom is having the
Yeah. So knowledge, she said, okay, you guys are, you are a team now. You are answering knowledge and wisdom. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, she has given you the knowledge, so you give the wisdom. Okay, so one person says knowledge is knowing everything, but distinguishing between what is right and what is wrong is wisdom. Okay, how many of us agree here? Come on, raise your hands. Okay, yeah, you had an answer.
Knowledge is about knowing things, wisdom is about where to use those things.
Okay, knowledge is about knowing things, wisdom is about where to use those things.
If someone says that it's good to laugh, to create humor, then it's a good thing, it's knowledge. But if you go to a funeral, it's good to laugh, to make everyone laugh out there. It's not that you don't have proper wisdom.
Okay, so basically what you said was absolutely right, and you also gave an example that knowledge is knowing things, but wisdom is knowing when to use it. Okay, yes, I had an answer there. Yeah.
Knowledge is something which is already stored.
Knowledge is something
Which is already stored.
already stored, okay?
It's not something which you learn. I mean, it's a little different from knowledge. We learn something new. It is not already stored in our brain. Knowledge is something we accumulate from outside.
Okay. Knowledge is something which is already there, but wisdom is something which is acquired. Okay?
I would add to his point, wisdom is something you get after you apply the knowledge. So it comes with experience over time. So again, knowledge is static, but wisdom becomes more dynamic.
Okay. So this is like the street smartness. You know, you pick up the word from the presentation and then you say dynamic and static and all. Okay, wonderful. But finally, I can say all of you are right. At the same time, all of you are wrong. Okay, because I have a simple definition for knowledge or distinguishing knowledge and wisdom. All of you know what it is, right? Tomato. Now, all of us also know this fact that tomato is a fruit. So, in my simple way of telling it, knowledge is knowing tomato is a fruit, but wisdom is knowing not to put in the fruit salad. It's as simple. That's what he said. That you know, but you know also what to do and what not to do. So knowledge is knowing tomato is a fruit, and wisdom is not having the tomato in the fruit salad. So applied knowledge becomes wisdom, in simple terms. In fact, I was talking to other day at E-India Conclave. There, the people were talking about 20th century, 21st century. 20th century is the century of knowledge, where knowledge is power. But 21st century, if there is one single difference between knowledge is power and today, is applied knowledge is power. Knowledge is still there, but then you got to apply. If you don't apply, there is a wealth of knowledge. My friend said, I read it on Wiki. Wiki is there. But are we applying it? So that is the session today. Yeah? How are we applying things? Okay, so now we know. We know the story of dynamism of mentoring. We know why mentor, and then we also know the process in terms of what is mentoring, because it's wisdom. It's passing on wisdom from one generation to another, or in simple term, passing on the wisdom from one person to another. Right? Now, I want to tell you a story. This is my story. The story dates back to 2012, when I happened to visit the Arab world. The world of sheikhs and sand dunes and all those belly dancers and date syrups and other things. So I happened to visit Dubai, and at that point in time, it was a pleasure trip. So I was going every part of the city to witness and also to explore what is it which has made Dubai what Dubai is. So I was there visiting the Burj Khalifa or those Palm Islands and other things. When I was also embarking on this sand safari or the desert safari, what you call, I happened to see something which is what I call find your falcon. In fact, the next few minutes I'm going to talk about is my experience in Dubai and how that can be related to mentoring. So when I visited this Dubai world, the Arab world, I saw this particular scene in that sand dune, where I saw this falcon. All of us know falcon, right? Vulture or a different species of vulture under the same umbrella. And I also saw Arabs keeping them, like how we keep dogs and cats in our homes. I was fascinated with this particular idea as to how such a wild creature can be kept as a pet. And you don't believe that they had those falcons going all over their body. You know, the falcon used to sit on their hand, it used to sit on their shoulders, sometimes it used to get onto those head turbans, and that person was behaving as if everything is normal around him. Looking at him, we used to maintain our distance. We used to go back and we used to watch out at other part, what is he going to do, another thing. But that fellow was absolutely cool about it. He was like, he was going on and on and on, serving us, hospitable and other things. I couldn't resist because I saw something like this, the next photograph. So I asked him this question. I said, enough is enough. Tell me, what makes you keep that falcon with you? Then that guide who was with me, he went on to explain. He says, training and taming the falcon is a common phenomenon in Arab. And that's like a matter of prestige, that if you have that with you. And because Dubai is known for tourism, they do this to attract tourists like us. But he also continued and said that this is not something which is new only to Arab. Falcon training and taming happens across the world. It happens in Australia, it happens in Europe, it happens in Egypt, it also happens here. But there is one significant difference between taming and training a falcon in Arab and taming and training a falcon in the rest of the world. And the records and the statistics say that the Arabs are. So obviously I asked him the next question. I said, why? Why is statistics saying that Arabs are good in terms of taming and training the falcon? So when I asked him that, you are not capable of. What style you should adopt, what style you should not adopt. What imitation you should do, what imitation you should not do. Which level you should take your speech to and which level you should not try at this point in time. That happens when I know you as a person and you know me as a person. Forget about the mentor, mentee, team lead, team player, manager, assistant, all that doesn't matter. For those of my friends who are not a part of Toastmaster setup, it really does not matter. What matters is two people and having a relationship as to I know him or her and she knows me or he knows me, and then we develop an intimacy. It really does not matter that we got to spend that kind of 24/7 time with them. But the amount of time you spend with your other person, it should be that much that the relationship will not only be instructional, it will also be intimate. Intimate in the true sense of the word, where I understand you and you understand me. That is the first step of mentoring. If you can have that, you can be like an Arab and his falcon, where a creature like that can be controlled by him with just words. And this is true, this is reality. You can go and read tons and tons of information on how Arab tames or trains the falcon. Now, extending the same analogy further, I thought, let me pick up three elements, the elements of mentoring from this particular relationship, but of course, adopting it to our real life. So the three elements which I am going to talk about is basically from this, the three elements of mentoring. The first element is trust. I am going to be fast in terms of covering these three elements because I spoke to Kanak just a while ago before my presentations began, and she said that one challenge which we face is when a speaker is at that level and I am not at that level as a mentor, how am I going to give him mentoring tips? Another challenge which I face or which we want you to cover is how mentoring will help me as a person who is a mentee and how mentoring will help the mentor itself. So I will talk about these two things towards the end of my presentation. So that way I will be rushing through this particular three elements because these are basic elements. But of course, I will not rush through it before I give you the example. Now I have put you this trust. Now we all know what is the meaning of the word trust. Now can you all answer why is trust important in a mentoring relationship? And what does trust actually mean? You can give me examples, you can give me stories, or you can give me your own experience.
We obey when we trust.
Okay.
So if we trust our mentor, we obey what he says, and then we'll eventually see the consequences that, okay, this was fruitful.
Okay, wonderful.
The receptivity is higher. The trust is because you give your value and you open to new ideas, what you want to say. If the trust is a should be difficult. So you hear what he says, but
Okay, wonderful. Any other answer from any other corner?
We follow instructions when we trust.
Okay, let me illustrate this entire three answers through an example. All of us have heard of this particular character called Arjuna. Right? Arjuna? Okay. Now, in the history of Mahabharata, if you see, the strongest of the Pandavas was not Arjuna. The righteous of all the Pandavas was not Arjuna. The obedient of all the Pandavas was not Arjuna. Right? In fact, the Mahabharata itself has recorded that the most fragile personality, if at all, any, was Arjuna. Because he was indecisive at all points of time. And at every time he was indecisive, who came to his rescue? Krishna. Now, I am going to take this example of Krishna and Arjuna and tell you the importance of trust in a relationship. It so happened that Krishna was at war with Lord Indra. And when the war was declared, these people were fighting tooth and nail. And then, finally, Krishna happens to win the war. He said, today, I am going to kill that person who killed my son, that is Jayadratha, or else I am going to kill myself. I am going to commit suicide. Now, Krishna never liked this kind of impulsive reactions. But this is a fact that even before Arjuna could compose himself and then go to fight the war, Krishna was already there at the chariot waiting for Arjuna to get onto it. So these two instances, what does it say? I've just written four lines, and now let us analyze, does that make any sense? Trust enables us to support but not interfere. Trust enables us to criticize but not insult. Trust enables us to advise but not make them dependent. And trust makes us disown the decisions but not disown them. Now look at that last example of Krishna going and waiting for Arjuna to come. He could have disowned Arjuna and said, I am not going to join you in this stupid endeavor. But he was the first person to sit on the chariot waiting for him because he did not disown Arjuna. He only disowned the decision. Similarly support, similarly criticize, similarly advise. Now why am I telling all this to you? We all engage into this mentor-mentoring relationship. When we have trust, especially as mentors, or even for that matter as mentees, we will end up doing only the yellow words, but not the words in the white.